In 365 days, the federal government spends about 264 billion naira maintaining country's 4 refineries and petroleum pipelines. This was disclosed by a former chief operating officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. Reactions have been trailing this disclosure as the refineries remain inactive and the petroleum pipelines decrepit. Now, the injection of such huge funds into projects that are yielding very little or no returns is a source of concern to many, as Nigeria still refines crude abroad and imports it back home. Now, promises from the Buhari administration to fix the refineries and even build new ones have fallen flat, as the nation now seems to be waiting cap in hand for the completion of the Dangote refineries. That is what we'll talk about next. Now, joining me on Zoom for more on this is a senior manager in the oil, gas and power practice of Anderson in Nigeria, Temitope Kolade. Temitope, good morning. It's good to have you join me now.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, this disclosure may not necessarily be new, that Nigeria spends close to 200 or about 264 billion naira annually, maintaining refineries. But the point there is, when figures like this come out, it reminds Nigerians of, this amount of money, and then they juxtapose it against the effectiveness or the functioning or functionality of the refineries, and then it creates a new debate. Talk to us basically, this money that has been earmarked to maintain refineries this way, how justifiable is this?
Thank you very much for having me once again. Yeah, quite frankly, it's very challenging to put up a justification for that continuous annual spend on our refineries, given that the output is next to nothing. As a matter of fact, I can confirm to you that if you check the financial statements, the audited financial statement of Port Harcourt refineries, for instance, for the year 2020, you'll find that there was no revenue at all. Yet about 12 billion was spent on processing expenses, about 16 billion on personnel. But I think to have a good understanding of what the issues are, it's going to be good for us to also do a bit of track back to history, to how the refinery came about, even in Nigeria. So we all started with the Warri refinery back in the days, and that was majorly it started up through the Shell company, right? So it was a private affair at the point until the government had to get some shares in it and at some point fully take it over, right? And some of these decisions to take over or to have some say in what's happening within the petroleum sector is not peculiar to Nigeria. Reasons that sometimes are not purely economic, right? So for instance, there was a need for some governments to wrest control of pricing of crude oil from the IOCs, because energy is also something very strong. You don't want energy poverty for your people. So for some reasons, you really want a great deal of control over what happens within that space. But it's then become clear over the years at some point that there was some other very uneconomic decisions that were taken with respect to our refineries. We had the consumption requirement increasing, and then Port Harcourt refinery came on board, the old one, and then the new, and then the Kaduna refinery. And at some point, the government, the revenue was meant to be taken straight paid straight into the Central Bank of Nigeria, and then the refineries lost their complete autonomy, and they have to basically report through the NNPC to the CBN, and then it becomes very inefficient. So that's where we are today, and what it means is that some staff are still on the books of these refining companies.
Okay.
So it's also difficult to fire government officials.
All right, Temitope, let's understand this a little bit. I'd like us to make it a little more simple for Nigerians to understand. The point there is, building a refinery, of course, we know it's not, as much as it's not a rocket science, but it's not something you just couple two things together and it's done. We know it's kind of complex. But the point there is, when we talk about over 200 billion naira every year. Can you break it down for us? What are the things being maintained that we have to maintain this every year? Is it because the equipment are obsolete, or some pipes are rusted? But we have to do this every single year.
Okay, thanks once again. And that's where I was going exactly, to say that it's not just maintenance of the equipment, it's also maintenance, if I should say, of personnel, right? Going back to where we're coming from, there are some staff on the books of these companies already. There are benefits that they have to earn over the years. And like I said, it's difficult to fire employees of government. You begin to see some riots here and there. So, like I was saying, in 2020, the Port Harcourt Refinery Company, for instance, spent about 16 billion on personnel expenses, right, and had no revenue at all. Right, and this is what you see in the other refinery companies as well, even though you might have maybe a worry at some point still in 2019, giving some revenue, even though marginal. So you see the costs very much, but the revenue is little or nothing at all, depending on which refinery we're talking about. Now, there is also the processing expenses, where some crude is still committed to these refining companies at least until 2020, right, for some refinery. And so you find that the plants are running, but they are running at low capacity. And government did not take the decision to basically scrap them at the point, or to divest, to have private companies run them. So because we continue to have the government run them, they run inefficiently in such a manner that you don't want to sack the staff that are on the books of those companies, and then you have some engines still running in those places. And so some costs are still, there is still a cost profile that is being maintained, even though there is no revenue. So quite frankly, it's inefficient, but that's what we've seen over the years.
All right. I wonder how, because Nigeria is not the only country, oil producing country in the world, or even on the African continent. I wonder how the other countries are running theirs, and they have results, and we are running ours and not having results, yet we're committed to pumping that amount of money into it, even though we're not getting what we need to get from it.
Yeah, indeed. And we need to think about it from the sense of, is it just a geopolitical position? For instance, you think about where the refineries are located, and the fact that one had to be located at some points at a place where, you know, it's closer to the people and all of that. So there are various reasons why we take decisions that are not purely economic, I would say. And that's one of the things that has gotten us, again, because Nigeria is not just exactly like every other nation. And we found over time that it's also very difficult for government to run business, sometimes to be the regulator at the same time be in business, which is what we've been saying. These refining companies, for instance, are subsidiaries of the NNPC, and the NNPC acts in a way as a regulator, especially when it comes to petroleum products, together with its other subsidiaries, right? So that's what we've seen in Nigeria. Well, Nigeria is an unusual place. It requires some unusual measures to also deal with the issues that we have, because the issues are localized, I would say.
All right. Temitope Kolade, thank you for talking to us on TVC Breakfast this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
All right.